Welcome to Jackie's Craft Table. Hello everyone, welcome. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I'm going to create a Slimline Halloween card in this video. This is a collaboration video with Arteza. I'm going to use some of their beautiful products to create this card. The first product I want to show you is their set of white gel pens. I love my white gel pen. I use it for almost every card. So I was very excited to see that they have their own white gel pens now. This is a set of 12, and they come in 3 different sizes. The smallest size is a 0.6, and then you get a 0.8, and then the largest size is a 1.0. You get several of each, and I'm just going to pull out one of each size and give you a close-up look at these pens. So if you get this set of 12, and they do come in smaller sets, but if you get this set of 12, you'll be set up for a while, I think. So here is the 0.6 size. I'll show you what these pens look like on this piece of black cardstock. And again, this is the thinnest of the 3. So first of all, I was very impressed with how smoothly they flow from the tip. I usually use a white jelly roll pen, and with the jelly roll pens, you have to use a bit of finesse when you apply it onto the paper. If you press too hard with the jelly rolls, the ink is not going to flow. But with these pens, I was pressing really hard and then really soft, and the ink just flows beautifully. Now let's move on to the 0.8. This is the middle pen, the medium-sized pen. I create a lot of Christmas cards where I use these pens for snowflakes, and so that's why I'm putting down little dots here. This Arteza pen feels like it really settles into the paper. With the Jelly Roll pen, it's kind of puffy, and you can kind of scrape it off afterwards. But these are really smooth, and they leave no profile whatsoever, unlike the Jelly Roll pens. And I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing, it's just a difference that I'm seeing between the 2 pens so far. Here is the 1.0 pen, and this is the size that I usually use with my Jelly Roll pens. It puts down the thickest line. I'm going to use these pens again later on to add some detail to my Slimline card. So the stamps I'm using are from My Favorite Things. This one is called Ghostly Greetings. And then when I saw this background stamp from MFT, I had zero hesitation in purchasing it. It is just adorable. You'll see it when I stamp it out here in just a minute. But it is called City Block Background, and I just adore it. I also showed you some orange embossing powder that I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using 2 kinds of paper, some black cardstock and some black watercolor paper. I'm going to use the black cardstock first to stamp out my background stamp. I'm putting down some dot liner on the back of this cardstock just to hold it in place while I stamp out the background stamp. And of course, I need to take out the foam piece from my Misty. So this is the first time I've ever used this stamp. I'll take it out of the packaging, and then it has a little peel off on the back. And once you peel this off, it'll cling to the door of your Misty. I'm trying to be careful to peel this off so it doesn't rip because I do reuse it once I'm done with the stamp. I'll center that on my cardstock, pick it up with the door of the Misty, and then I'm going to use some anti-static powder. This does turn my black cardstock white, as you can see here, but you can easily wipe it off with a rag or a tissue once you're done with your embossing. I'm inking it up with some Versamark ink. This is a very detailed stamp, so I do end up stamping it out several times, but I'm just going to show you one stamping. And here it is all stamped out. Now for the fun part. I'm going to put down a piece of type paper to catch my orange embossing powder. This orange embossing powder is just fabulous because it shows up just brilliant on this piece of black cardstock. I'll have the link for everything listed in my description box below. This is from Ranger and it's called Tiger Lily, and it's just the perfect color for Halloween. And look at those cute buildings. You could use this stamp for every single occasion, but I'm going to use it for Halloween. You could use it for Christmas or Valentine's or just all year round. I just fell in love with this stamp. Now I'm going to melt the embossing powder. I allowed my heat tool to warm up for about a minute. As the embossing powder melts, it does turn a little bit lighter, but it's still just a brilliant, beautiful orange. I am going to be cutting this panel down so that it will fit onto a slimline card. And all of the slimline cards I make are 8.5 by 3.5 in size. Okay, let's set that panel aside, and I'm going to pull out a piece of Stonehenge black watercolor paper. This is a lovely paper. It's so thick, and it just takes a lot of water. It's just gorgeous. I'm going to stamp my little ghosts out onto this paper, as well as the 2 pumpkins from this stamp set. I really love this stamp set called Ghostly Greetings. The images are drawn very simply, but they're just adorable. And now I'm going to pick them up with the Door of the Misty. I'll treat my paper again with some anti-static powder. This just keeps the embossing powder from sticking where I don't want it to stick. And then stamp them up with Versamark ink. I'm going to be using white embossing powder this time, and if there are any strays on the black cardstock, it just really shows, so that's why I like to use the anti-static powder. Now I can pour on the white embossing powder. And here they are. Doesn't take long to melt the embossing powder on these images. Okay, now for some fun painting. I have a set of Arteza metallic watercolors. I love this set. They're just gorgeous. They are a set of 24. Here is my swatch sheet for black cardstock. I'm going to be using Aztec Gold for my pumpkins, and then Diamond White for my ghosts. I added a few drops to the paints that I'm going to use and let them activate. Now I could just start painting them in, and this was so much fun to do. Just look at this beautiful color, and it's transparent. It's just perfect for these little ghosts. I'm using an Arteza water brush to paint these in. I love water brushes because they're so handy. You just add water to the barrel, and you can just start your painting. And it has a very fine tip to it so that I can get into the little places along the bottom of the ghosts. I've used these paints before in previous videos, and I will link to one of those at the end of this video. And now for the pumpkins. And I'm going to use the Aztec Gold. And then for the stem, I'm using a color called Iridescent Green. It looks like it should be a white paint, but it goes on a beautiful green. For their eyes, I'm using lemon yellow. This will just make them look like they're glowing. I'm going to put this paper aside to dry, and then once it's dry, I'm going to fussy cut these images out. But here is a close-up look. Isn't that beautiful? I love that diamond white on the ghosts. I'm using a set of Slimline dies from Trinity Stamps. And to cut out a little piece for my sentiment, I'm using a scalloped die. I cut it out once, as you see, but I'm going to cut off the very edge with the same die. And I'm going to use this little piece of pink cardstock for my sentiment. And then it will just fit my card perfectly. So I cut out the scallops with a piece of gray cardstock. Now I'm going to put down a piece of pink cardstock. I just put that type paper there so you could see the gray cardstock because my mat is gray. It wasn't showing up very well. I went ahead and I cut down my panel of buildings and houses down. and I'm just attaching everything with some dot liner. I had to cut it down into 2 panels to fit on the Slimline card, but to hide the seam, I'm just going to use my sentiment, and I stamped my sentiment off camera. I heat embossed it with white embossing powder, and the sentiment says, "Hello, Bootiful." My ghosts are all cut out. I also cut out the bats from the stamp set with some pink ink that matches my pink cardstock. I want to pop up all of my images just to give them some fun dimension, so I'm using some foam tape from Arteza. Now I can just pull off the release paper and start attaching those to the front of my card. The little bats, I'm hoping that they look like bows on these little girl ghosts. I fussy cut those out as well, and I'm just using a micro dot to attach it to the sides of their little heads. And now for my last ghost, I'll just put her up at the top. I'm attaching everything before I attach it to my card base, just because I want it to lay flat while I add some more details with the white gel pens. Just needed little touches of white in the windows and on some of the buildings. Just little touches around the card. I thought this looked really cute. I'm using the smallest pen so I can get into these tiny places. The ink in these pens just flow so easily. I was so impressed with these. Arteza does have gel pens in colors. I haven't tried those yet, but I want to give those a try now after having played with the white gel pens. I'm using more dot liner on my white card base. And now I can attach my panel to this. I like to kind of stand it up and line it up that way, and then I can just press it into place. And here is a close-up look at my finished card. This was a really fun card to put together. I'm trying to turn it so that it catches the light and you can see those gorgeous metallic watercolors. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care. Bye.